All right, guys, what's up? Got that Holly swag. Booyah. Got that 12er. Word. Hey, guys, so welcome back. We have been rocking and rolling since we got back from Indianapolis, kind of riding that high. Big first place finish up there. That was really cool to be, really cool project to be involved with on the ranch hang, and really cool to go and travel that far away from the house and to take the W. Especially with Matt, we had such a good time with the whole Demo Ranch crew up there. Looking forward to doing that again. Y'all stay tuned. That car is coming back, and we're going to do round 2 on that thing. We're going to tear it down and find out what happened. We actually did drive it off the track, but we think we melted at least one piston. So y'all stay tuned. Next couple weeks, I think that car is coming in here. We've got to get it tore down because we're on a deadline to get that thing back together into the next event. So be looking forward to that. But something really cool just showed up. Let me show you. Boom, shaka, laka. Recognize this thing? You probably do. Demo-Cuda. The guys at Muscle Rod finished up the first part of what they were doing over there, which was to get the car complete, running, driving, moving, and they did. And for those of y'all who have not seen the footage of when it came off the trailer and Matt's first test drive, well, check it out right here.
Oh my God.
What happened in that video? Well, the intercooler exploded. The one end of the intercooler that was sitting up here. Brandon came and picked it up because we're gonna try round 2. We're gonna, Brandon is going to plate over the seams that he welded up, because all too often on aluminum intercoolers with high boost, high temperature, they actually blow apart at that seam. So that's all good. I mean, it's part of it. You've got to, if you're not breaking stuff, then you're not pushing it, hard enough. And that was the first piece that let go, was the end tank on the intercooler on this side. Matt was pretty excited about how this thing ran, even though he only got a couple second pull in it. Seeing the excitement on his face and hearing him describe how the power came on, I think this is going to be a lot more fun than even he originally anticipated. But for those of y'all who don't know what this thing is, if you have not been following along throughout this build, this is a first gen chassis with a Cuda on it. And when I say first gen, I mean like this truck over here, which is actually another truck Demo Matt brought in. Matt's good at breaking stuff, and we're pretty good at fixing it for him. He's kind of like us. He's got a lot of cool stuff, and he likes to break it. This one actually came in running and driving, but we're going through it and fixing some electrical stuff, putting a new hitch on the back of it, did the killer dowel pin on the front timing case. We tried to talk Matt into turning the thing up, but he does not want to. I think it's maybe a smart decision because he might be breaking it more frequently if we start leaning on it. But either way, doing quite a bit of work on that pickup. Anyway, that frame is basically the same frame that's underneath this car. This one's been reworked quite a bit. You can see that it's super clean, where the sections of frame actually come together. Muscle Rod does a really good job at fabricating. Brandon is a really good welder. Tony's a really good welder. These guys do a really, really good job. They know what they're doing down there, and they've done an outstanding job to get this car to the stage that it's at currently. And it's still got a long way to go. This thing is going to look mint when they get done with it. If you've never seen the cars over at Muscle Rod, then you wouldn't understand. But I can tell you this, if you see them in person, you know real quick and in a hurry that the guys down there are extremely talented. That's upper echelon fabrication ability. Those guys deserve a lot of props. I mean, these dually fenders, handmade. killer work. Can't say enough good things about that crew down there and their ability to build a quality product. They borrowed our tubing bender and built the cage inside here. Again, very nice welds. They've got the pieces laid in here where you can actually unbolt and take sections of the roll cage out so that you can, work on the inside of the car and bolt them back in. And these are still super stout. You can see they're keyed. These are billet pieces. These are legit. I forget, the name's slipping my mind right now what those pieces are called, but those are cool pieces to be able to get in there and work on the car. Very, very nice quality on all of that kind of stuff. The motor, for those who don't know, Steven and I built this motor for Matt. Had a lot of sponsorship love on this deal. Injection pump from Seth Farrell, putting out 650 cc's. That is enough fuel for a lot of power for a stock bottom end 12 valve. This is not a girdled motor. Mainly basically stock internal engine. We put one piston in it, set the ring gaps on some stuff, threw a cam in it from Hamilton Cams and a cam retainer. It does have steel tappets, chromoly push rods, a nice set of Hamilton springs. I believe they're Hamilton. They might actually be Manton. We kind of use both depending on what availability there is. Matt had somebody hook him up with a tubular header, which is actually a round port header on a square port. This is a 24 valve header on a 12 valve motor, and I don't know how long that's going to last before it starts leaking exhaust between the gaskets, but we're certainly going to find out. Turbo setup is a 64 millimeter S300 on the bottom and an 80 millimeter S400 on top. 64 480 combo is what that's called. That's good. That's enough air there for right around 1,000 horse. Unlikely to do it on a P-pump 12 valve truck on just fuel, but definitely 800 horsepower I think is very doable. So we're excited about that. Massive injectors. I don't remember exactly what size. I want to say 518 to 520 range. So that's huge, especially for something that's going to be driven on the street. And 625 studs. This is a stage 2 head. I want to say that head flows 100 CFM over what the stock cylinder head would. So it's a new casting from Power Stroke Products. And those guys, that's actually one of the Hamilton brothers from Hamilton Cams. Not Hamilton Cams, that's a different brother, but nonetheless, these guys are into mechanical 12 valve, 24 valve stuff, and we've used their products for a long time and had really good luck with them. The guys at King Speed hooked it up with all of the flashy goodies that you see. King Speed fabricated aluminum oil pan, King Speed front timing cover, King Speed billet valve covers. Very cool. Moonlight Fab sent Matt this sweet intake plenum. It's billet aluminum. The side tappet cover down there, it's pretty cool. It says demolition in it. That's really a cool piece. We actually threw one of our grid heater delete pieces that we had in there. I don't know if you can see Holden Bros up in there, but either way, that little spacer in there. Just some little doodads and stuff. Our partners at Holley, they're also a big partner with Muscle Rod, all that stuff. Thanks to Matt from Demolition Ranch for hooking all of us guys up with these guys. And these are like-minded people in the industry that are all about making cool stuff and unique, and really they've helped every single one of us, and we can't thank those guys enough. So enough about the engine side. Underneath the front, this is a Kingpin Dana 60. It's got a crossover steering up here. The lower link, the center link is actually still in the factory location, but crossover steering on this axle. Otherwise, this axle is stock. So we've got some work to do on this because the outer shafts on this are going to grenade along with the stock hubs when Matt puts this in full drive and goes full send, which we know he's going to do. So we're going to try to address that while that's here. Shout out to Yukon if y'all want to hook it up on some of those legit steel hubs and some outer axle shafts. We would love to have some of that to go in the front. We did just order gears for this car because there's mismatch between the front axle and the back axle. We do not have parts, so we're not going to break into the car yet today. I'm just kind of showing y'all what we're working with and what we're going to do with the car and a little bit about how it's built. So Dana 60 in the front. This is an AAM 11.5. That's an 11.5 inch ring gear axle out of a 2015 one-ton dually four-wheel drive Ram truck. And it has had the tubes sectioned on it and pieces chopped out to fit under the back of this car. And then custom axle shafts were made to length to match the width of the axle. So again, we're going to re-gear the back end of this to match the front gear set. And we're going to do that by using what's called an effective ratio calculator. You enter the size of the tire, your final drive ratio in the transmission, and you can kind of pick a target RPM that you want to be able to cruise at, or wherever your engine makes power, whatever you want. You want fuel economy, you want to be able to pull a trailer. All that math's going to come into consideration, and we're going to do that on the next level of this car. We're going to go over all that math and tell you why we're going to pick the gear ratio we are, and what we're going to do about setting up the gears in the front and the back. This one has spanners. This is a lot easier axle to set up than the front, and we're going to go over all that in the near future and tell you why that is, and then show you exactly why that is. So again, 11.5 inch AAM axle in the rear, custom fuel tank from the boys over there at Muscle Rod, got a double cardon joint rear drive shaft, and a sick billet Hero transfer case. Also has a torque arm on it to keep the pinion from climbing, with a shackle. That way your suspension can move throughout the geometry like it's supposed to. As far as the transmission goes, this is what's called a full manual valve body. That means you can selectively, on demand, as soon as you move that shifter into gear, it goes to whatever gear you tell it. Manual valve body 48 RE, again with some love from the guys at King Speed. And this trans is extremely built. Sonics, fine spline, big input shaft, gear and high stall converter, extreme clutch converter. I think it's got a 17SS 250 converter in it. Billet direct drum, billet sunshell, billet input, intermediate output shafts. It's got a 29 spline output, which is the largest output. That's the same output shaft that's behind like a G56 6-speed in your 1-ton dually trucks. The same output shaft that was in Gitrags, NV4500s. For the guys who are familiar with these Dodge, these are all 1-ton, 3/4 ton, and 1-ton heavy-duty transmissions. Gitrag, NV4500, NV5600, G56. All those trucks that came four-wheel drive standard transmission all had a 29 spline output shaft, which is much larger and much stronger than the 23 spline that came in your standard automatic. So we went all big boy stuff on the inside. It's all GPZ clutches. It's a gear and valve body, and it's set up really, really nice. Of course, all the levers, accumulators, all that kind of stuff inside the transmission as well. We use TCS of Canada for those pieces. Very nice stuff. It's really all top of the line. So Sonax for shafts, TCS for shafts, accumulators, gear in for converters, gear in billet flex plate. Good stuff, real good stuff. Transmission was assembled by High Tech Transmission in San Antonio. They build all of our automatics. So that's a rundown on what the basic mechanical workings are of that car. We're going to get into better detail with that as soon as we get an intercooler back from Brandon at Muscle Rod. Then we'll be able to actually move the car around a little bit. We don't necessarily need it to get it on the rack to do the gears, but we also don't have parts. We ordered master install kits, ring and pinions, and I'll go over the ratios and why we picked that stuff here very soon rather, and show you why those things are the way they are, because Matt has some pretty wild plans for this car, and we're trying to hit all those goals and make everything work. So that's where we're at on the Demo-Cuda. Now, we've got some other projects that y'all guys have seen in the background in the shop, and I'm going to kind of start over here by the bay door and let you see what all we're working on. I'm going to kind of cover these things as quickly as I can and give you as much information at the same time. So, you've seen the Harleys. They're sitting in the background in a lot of these videos, and these bikes unfortunately don't get as much attention as they used to since we got married, had kids, building a new shop, but the weather's been perfect. We got new batteries in them, got them fired up, bikes are running great, but we are in the quest for more power on both these motorcycles. Steven rides an 06 Springer Softail. Dope bike. I've tried to get him to sell me the bike or trade it. He won't do it. It's fine. It's what it is. I ride an 07 Night Train. Twin cam 88, twin cam 96, 5-speed, 6-speed, Springer front end, not Springer front end. But yeah, these bikes are both basically stock, tuned, like stage 1, some pipes, some basic stuff. But we're actually going to get into doing some cooler stuff with these bikes. We're going to put cams in both of them, talking about doing a 107 kit on this bike, trying to get to about 120 horse to the tire, 115, 120 horse to the tire on this motorcycle. Going to probably do a re-gear on it. Really just like the whole shot. That's what we really like, is the acceleration and the amount of torque that a Harley motor makes. It's not the greatest engine design. It's not the fastest bike. No one cares. They remind us of Cummins and diesel stuff. I also happen to think they make a really good noise, and we've enjoyed having them. Bought these bikes brand spanking new and had them for a long time, and so yeah, they deserve some love and to make a little bit of power. So that's exactly what we're going to do with those. These are a little bit further back in the row on stuff that we're going to do, but they're sitting here, so I figured I'd tell you about them. Our Camaro. This RS car has been sitting in here for a while. We've had some up and down woes with this thing, between getting parts, suspension stuff, engine stuff, all that kind of stuff. All the things that happen when you're trying to, build something cool. You always run into those kinds of issues, but we are actually covering some ground. Got our 383 back fresh from Kotzer Racing. The car actually had a much wilder cam, higher compression, and a lot of that kind of stuff, because it was mainly a drag car. It had been gutted for all kinds of things. Like the regulators for the headlights, even those things are missing. They got pieces of the bell crank left, but none of the vacuum stuff is there. None of those pods are there. The control arms were stamped sheet metal that had actually been cut and hollowed out. Somebody on a budget was trying to go as fast as they could, and they said the car ran in the 9s. Maybe it did. They were spraying nitrous on it, and when we brought the car in here, it had what looked like machining powder in the oil galleys. Had a little bit of low oil pressure, so we pulled the motor. Had Kotzer Racing in San Antonio, who does all of our engine machine work, gas or diesel, go through this setup, and Matt and Pete came up with a combination that works really well, something that's proven in the small block Chevy arena, and put this thing together. So we've got a pretty moderate, not mild, not wild, but a moderate build 383, probably somewhere in the high 4s, maybe 500 horse to the flywheel. Flywheel just showed up that matches the converter. It's got a bolt-on bell housing. I think it's a built turbo 350 or 400. We changed up the suspension stuff. This is all Hotchkiss stuff, so we've got subframe connectors and all that kind of crap that's already gone in here. We're going to pull the nitrous and stuff off the car for now. We're just trying to get something that's a little bit more cruiser friendly, and you go out, you fire the car up, you let it idle, it'll idle in traffic, you can have air conditioning if you want it, those kinds of things. Trying to bring the car a little bit back down to where it can be driven and enjoyed, instead of being a trailer queen or just going and making hits at the track. That's what the customer wanted, so that's what we're doing. And right now we're having some clearance issues with headers to steering box, and just on and on. All the typical stuff that happens when you start throwing something together. So this car is getting some attention, and we're going to go over this in a little bit better detail as it goes along. We're going to be doing the install of a Holley Terminator EFI on this thing, and we may very well, probably not the first round, but the next round we'll put a 4L60 or a 4L80 or a 6L80 or some kind of modern transmission in this car, and potentially re-gear it at that point so that he can really have his cake and eat it too. So stay tuned for that. It's a bad car. It's a bad car. It's going to be cool. Then, last but not least, but something that we are going to cover here pretty quickly, is this Scout. And this Scout actually belongs to me. It's a 1971 800B. It is probably the least production run of the Scouts. I'm not exactly sure on that, but they only built them for 7 months. And I had quite a few of the original parts for this thing, and then I've come across some other good deals, and so I was torn between trying to restore it and then just building what I really wanted, and we just decided to build what we really wanted. So this thing is it's kind of wild, but it's also not super wild. So it doesn't have 1 tons under it. It's got 6 lug axles that were meant for a Toyota truck. They just happen to be the right width to fit under it. And so I scored them off of a buddy of mine down the road, and we built the suspension for this thing to put these axles underneath it. And you can see that it doesn't have axle shafts in the outers. Right now we just set it up and mocked it up. But it is, the front end's a 3-link using a 1/4 inch wall, 250 wall, 2-inch piping. And we built and fabbed all this stuff. It's a high pinion 44, so that's got a reverse rotation gear set in it. The front's gonna have a Detroit locker in it, or like a True Track. The rear, I think right now, has a spool in it. It is also a Dana 44. These axles are underkill for really romping around and being dumb, but this is going to be kind of just a cool daily and something I can lightly apply the power to off-road and not really worry about it, because all the internals of the axle minus the gear set are chromoly, and it ought to do a good job. We've got some older Race Runner 2.5 shocks installed on it. You can see that the front 4-link bars run back. They're welded here to the frame. That stuff looking good. Painted this truck. We did all this work in just a couple of days. It was 4 18 or 20-hour days with the crew at One-Eyed Crow in Fredericksburg, Texas. Those guys, myself and I, and our buddy Eric went up there, and we thrashed this thing and made something that really didn't look that good into something that really looks badass in just a couple of days. We haven't covered this build because this truck is actually part of something else that's going on that we haven't announced yet, but we're going to start getting into this thing and giving you all a little detail on what the truck's got and what we're going to do with it. We're really close to firing this thing up. I scored an engine, trans, and T-case out of a Scout 2 for $500. That is a 4-barrel 345 727 Model 20 Dana transfer case. And right now, we pulled the valve cover the other day on this thing, and I noticed it had a little bit of rust in it. I actually picked the motor up out of a hay field, and it was covered in plastic, but it got a little bit of water in the motor. Pulled the plugs on it and sprayed some PB Blast in there and got it to turn over. I really think it's going to be okay, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out in front of God and everybody when we fire this up. I had one of the guys that works at the shop here, Zach, pull the oil pan off the bottom of it so I could inspect and see how much water made it to the bottom end. And there's not much. There was just a little bit. The rods look good, mains look good. I'm going to pull the oil pump down and probably separate it, make sure all that looks good on the inside. And we're going to hook up a wiring harness to it, pull the distributor out, prime the oil pump with the long flathead on a drill, throw the distributor back in here, put a hot wire to the coil, pour gas in the carburetor, and see if this thing will run. So, kind of a quick update on that guy. Yeah, y'all stay tuned. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're all over the place. We're also in the middle of building our new shop, which is rocking and rolling. If you have not seen that video, you need to go back and check it out. Check out the progress that's happened from the beginning to where we are currently. And just wait till y'all see that thing when it's done. We are making leaps and bounds over there, and it's going to be a really, really nice shop. Looking forward to introducing y'all to that place when it's finished and all the cool projects that are going to happen inside that when we get over there. So thank you guys for watching, and whole lot more cool stuff coming soon. Stay tuned. Later.